Now we come over to the type of prototypes we have on a broader level. There are two, which are horizontal and vertical. Horizontal are the ones which are implemented at the surface level without any functionality being implemented in depth, whereas vertical are the one where one important aspect of your application is taken upon and that is being built in depth. When I talk about in depth, it is about having integration with the backend, integration with the SQL or database, and there would be proper data flow between various levels or various layers of an application. That I mean about in depth. Horizontal prototypes are very much good for brainstorming, ideation, and reiteration of the design, whereas vertical prototype is something which are suitable for analysis of the interaction, features to evaluate usability. So let's talk about this diagram present over here. Over here, you can see a formation of T. The horizontal bar talk about the horizontal prototype, whereas the vertical bar talk about the vertical prototype. As we have discussed, horizontal prototypes are best for the brainstorming sessions. These are something which are implemented at the surface level. So there could be various scenarios of the user flow that your application has. And vertical prototypes come into picture when you take upon one scenario and you build upon that scenario in depth, where there is some code implemented at the backend, and that takes into account the whole of the data modulation and transformation. So over there, we have interaction being incorporated. There are a few quality assurers who test upon that particular vertical prototype and let us know that does it match the quality of what we have thought of or not. Is there some usability constraint that that particular scenario is showcasing or demonstrating? So that is all about horizontal and vertical prototype. Drilling in depth about what the horizontal and vertical prototype has to offer, there are low, medium, and high fidelity prototypes. The low fidelity prototypes are quick and cheap to make and modify. They are great for the horizontal prototype where brainstorming sessions are incorporated. And for example, the sketches and the drawings that could help depict major components of an interface and help in envisaging of overall appearance of how your user interface will look alike once it is being turned into something which is high fidelity. So how it will look alike. So to give that idea, low fidelity prototypes are being built, and few of the tools that help you build that low fidelity is Miro, Balsamic, and Whimsical. Although you can also create it over some of the high fidelity prototyping tools like Figma, Adobe XD. But yeah, these are the ones which are best to create it. Coming on to the next type of fidelity, which is the medium fidelity prototypes. Whenever we use a computer based technology or tool to create a prototype, then we say it as a medium fidelity prototype. They can have interactions, but there are no actual data being flowed across various levels of a prototype. It's just the interaction which we could incorporate uh, so as to give you a feel or give a user a feel about how the final application will behave. So it's a medium level of aesthetics, or we say medium level of fidelity which we have incorporated in such prototype. And few of the tools which are available in the industry are Adobe XD, Figma, InVision, Sketch, etc. Lastly, we come upon high fidelity prototyping. These prototypes are created using programming language, and these are the few tech stack which you could leverage to create such prototype. These are something which goes under pilot testing and ultimately to the user who would be using your application. Coming on to the next module of our presentation, it's user interface. What is user interface? As per the ISO standard, it's been defined as all of the components of the interactive system that provides you information and control to the user to accomplish specific tasks within that particular system. Few of the elements that help us do accomplish our task are lines, shape, the white spacing, color and value, and the textures that could help us create a visual identity for our product. When we talk about user interface design, we cannot miss on talking about the gulf of execution and the gulf of evaluation. First, we come upon the gulf of execution. It's the delta effort that user put into their mental model to reach the conceptual model of the product or service. Sometimes there might occur some instance when the action we specify to translate our intention may not be achieved through the interface that is being presented over the screen. For example, let's talk about the gulf of evaluation. As you can see over here, the system is trying to showcase you certain final cost, which is 27.15, but it is not showcasing you the shipment cost, which it is leveraging out of the user on over this particular cart value. So that is something which will create a gap what user perceive and what system is trying to convey, right? Because system is trying to convey it in terms of words, but user would be expecting that there should be some digit that should be displayed over here, so that there is some easy messaging that people would be easily evaluate what is that final delta which comes out as a shipment cost. So that is the gulf of evaluation. So now let's talk about the design principles of visual designing. There are few principles like contrast, emphasis, proportion, balance, rhythm, etc. that could help us create a visual identity or visual language for our application or software. The very first one is the contrast. Contrast are great elements to create or break the monotony of design and retain the user engagement with your application. Now we come upon the emphasis. Emphasis are something which could help engage user interest into certain UI elements. For example, as we can see over here, there are no such emphasis being given upon certain UI elements, but over here, an emphasis is being given upon to the central element by scaling its size a few pixels up, and by giving it a more contrasting element or of color to it, by implementing some contrasting color to it. So there is an emphasis being drawn over this particular UI element in this whole section. So that is all about emphasis. Now we come upon the proportion. Make sure you scale each individual element so as to bring the visual hierarchy and guide the user eye as to which next UI element they have to gaze upon. Rhythm. Make sure your composition of the visual design, as much as it's become more complex, the design patterns you have decided upon for your software is being leveraged so as to reduce the learning curve of the user. They need not have to learn it again and again, how to use that particular component, how to talk, how that interaction should happen. They need not have to learn it again and again. So rhythm is one thing you have to be particular about, and it creates a sense of semblance within your whole system. It creates a sense of coherence, some relativeness, that all of the UI elements are related to each other. So it creates a sense of coherence within each information or UI elements being displayed over the screen. Lastly, I talk about the Gestalt principle. Gestalt principle talks about the placement of the visual components in corresponding to each other. It says that similar looking elements, when placed closely and in symmetry, are perceived to be in association with each other. Few of the aspects of Gestalt principles are proximity, similarity, figure ground, continuity, closure, connectedness. If I talk about the examples of Gestalt principle, let's come over here. This particular website showcased the men's boot, and if we consider that we don't know what actually it is, so we can make a point over here that all of these could be related to each other because of their similar uh, visual similarity and their proximity and the way they are displayed in coherence to each other. So we come over here. As you can see, this is the logo of World Wildlife Fund, and over here there are no strict lines being defined by the designer to create an image of panda. It's just the patches of black and white that defines that particular image, and it's our eyes that create that certain boundaries, some imaginary boundaries, so as to complete this whole image, right? So that is the example of closure. Now let's come over to the example of figure ground relationship, and the logo of F1 is the best to explain that concept. If I consider the white color as the background, then I would be able to make out F as something as a figure, as a foreground, and the red element or the com structure as a racing track. But otherwise, if I consider the red and black as the background, I would be able to make a clear distinction that one is used over here as a foreground, as the figure. So that is a good example of figure ground relationship. As I have already talked about this thing, that user experience design is not only just about having fancy aesthetics, it's about understanding people, it's about understanding what attitude and behavior they have based on their past experiences, based on their life experiences. So it's very much important to map your conceptual model, your design conceptual model to their mental model, so that your product would become very much successful. As over here, you can see a weaver is weaving some carpet or article, and as our focus or as our case study is focusing upon the weavers of India, we have to be very much diligent about what their requirements are, what belief and perception they have, how much technically sound they are with the using an application, and what is their background. So that is all about user experience design, so that I could understand them and create a user flow of my application so that they could easily use it.
So as I said in the beginning, users are not designers and designers are not users. Users do not know what they want, and so UX and UI designers do the real task of identifying them. It is not the job of the designer to determine whether something is easy or difficult in a product for a real user. These problems can be overcome only if we test the prototype with the end users or target customers. Lesser the number of features, the easiest the product will be for your customers. But the point here is, there should not be too less features. There should be features that customers can actually put to use more frequently. You just need to focus on the most important task at the hand for the customers. One more important point is that more concise your communication is, the higher the probability that the user will pay attention to the content. Be it an app or a website, it is more important to design in such a way that the users retain information in their mind. Also, you can make your app or website look good by using all the standard visual design techniques that Lakshay has covered in this module, but avoid design for design's sake if the communication is not simpler. You can use Miro or Figma to design a low fidelity prototype, reduce short-term memory load, and permit easy reversal of actions. If something is too complicated or not working well, don't grow frustrated with the customer, but understand that the product or service is lacking intuitive design. Observe how users either correctly or incorrectly use the product that you have designed, and resist the urge to correct them if they are using it wrongly. Find a way to get feedback. Collect the feedback so that you can use it in the next iteration. In an iterative process such as design thinking, the results generally are often used to redefine one or more further problems. You can then proceed with further iterations and make alterations. The ultimate goal is to get deep understanding of the product and its users. Thank you.